My name is Bob Saudelli of the Leominster Historical Commission, and I am here today at the LA TV studio to conduct another interview with residents who grew up in the neighborhoods of Leominster. Neighborhoods identified by the signs which have been placed by the Department of Public Works under the direction of Director Pat LaPointe, a project initiated by Mayor Dean Mazzarella. By interviewing present-day people who remember the past, we hope to record and preserve the historical record of Leominster neighborhoods for future generations. So we are dealing with the past, Leominster's past, the present, by people who will reminisce about the past, and the purpose, one of the purposes is to add to the historical record so that people 100, 200 years from now will know what Leominster was like at the beginning of the 21st century. Today we're pleased to have two fine ladies. They were the Caponi sisters. Their married names are Olga Caponi Cipolla, and Eva Caponi Marone. And the neighborhood we're featuring today is Lincoln Terrace. And if you drive up by Graham Street, you will see at the bottom of the terrace, you will see one of the neighborhood signs, and at the other end of Lincoln Terrace, by Marguerite Avenue, you will see one of the other neighborhood signs. So that is the area that we're focusing in on today. And the era, the time frame, is the 30s, the 1930s, and the 1940s, when these ladies were girls. They were children, and they grew up on the terrace. One of my first, did you come from a small family, a large family, ladies?
Large family.
Let's start with Olga. A large family.
Yeah, 9 children.
9 children.
5 boys and 4 girls.
5 boys, 4 girls. That is a difference from today, because that was an extended family.
Exactly.
And today we have what's called, I guess, in the nuclear family, where 2 and 1 child or 2 children.
Right.
But you had a large family, a lot of mouths to feed.
Yes. Yes.
In the we chatted a little bit before the interview. Did you raise your own food? How did you? There were no supermarkets then. There were neighborhood markets.
Yes,
what about on the terrace?
Yes,
what
but
was
we lived at 79 Lincoln Terrace, and there was a market at a store, the Italian Colonial, was right next to our house. We also had a little variety store in our house.
In your house? You
in
had
your
a little...
house. My father broke up my mother's dining room, and he put a door to go in and a porch so they could enter and go out without going through the house. So we had a little variety store where they sold cigarettes, candy, and pastry.
Homemade?
Cupcakes.
Homemade?
No, cupcakes.
Yeah.
Cupcakes, yes.
Yeah, homemade cupcakes, or did...
No, it was bought.
Bought?
Yes.
Bought. So you actually had a little business store, a little variety store right in your house.
Which my 2 older sisters took turns running, and my mother during the day while we were in school ran the store.
To supplement the family income.
That's right.
And you mentioned something about a chicken coop.
Yes.
I know that my grandparents on Castle Street at that time, near Marguerite Avenue, I remember as a little kid, there was a rabbit coop, and there was a chicken coop, and there were gardens.
We had a chicken coop in the back of our house. We also had an outhouse, but we also had a full bath in the house. Which was rare in those days.
In those days, yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it was a little cottage with 3 rooms down, I believe, or 4, and 3 rooms up.
Now,
with a small porch.
Ladies, at that time, what Americans all, but were there a lot of different people from different countries living on the terrace, or was it primarily...
Well, primarily in the beginning it was the Irish, which were moved because the French were coming in, and then the Italians came and took over.
So it was different just
Right.
as today, different waves
Right.
of immigration
Right.
came in and
And
then settled in an
they
area.
started buying homes on Lincoln Terrace, and it just grew.
Yeah, because in my era, my recollection of Lincoln Terrace was, when I grew up, was primarily people of Italian extraction.
That's right.
But it's interesting to note that there were Irish immigrants there at one
First,
time,
and French.
and
There were
French,
French.
probably from French
Yeah.
Canadians who
I
had
would assume so,
immigrated.
yes.
So very, very interesting. One of the things that I had thought about during this interview, the name of Lincoln Terrace. And I don't know the origin of the name, but I do know that it's very close to Lincoln Woods.
Yes, yes.
It's
because
Lincoln
yeah,
Woods.
Union Street is not too far away.
Right, it's within
Correct,
a couple
right.
hundred yards.
That's right.
And Lincoln Woods, I believe, was named after the Lincoln family.
Yes.
And I'm just assuming that Lincoln Terrace, perhaps, no, not sure about this, but maybe it got its name from the Lincoln family. But the terrace part sort of intrigues me, because I've wondered whether the terrace, because there's a geological term about a terrace, and
Also, I
It
think
looked like
maybe
a
too,
terrace.
because it's higher.
it's higher.
It's higher
That's it.
above Central, and it's higher
Right.
above Lancaster
And
Street.
it's certain times of the
Right.
year when you look, when the leaves aren't on the trees,
right.
you can actually see some terracing.
Yes, yes, you
From
can.
Central Street, you can look up and
That's
you can
right,
see
you can look up. You
where
can see
there
all
were
the backs of the
terraces.
houses.
Right, and
Right.
so people had built some terraces to increase their
Yeah.
garden space. So I'm not sure, but it sort of
Well,
intrigued me.
my probably would say because it's up higher.
Yes.
We were
And
high.
a terrace is
high above,
usually up
yeah.
higher,
Yeah.
I assume.
Yeah.
So it was kind of
Right.
interesting
Yeah.
historically to wonder where these names came from. That's for someone else to research.
And then it was
Right.
called the Terrace.
The terrace. and it's
Everyone
known
you
as-
met, if I went to Fitchburg or wherever, where do you live? The Terrace.
The Terrace.
Because that's how they knew it,
Right.
the
right.
Terrace.
Ladies, where did you go to school? Did you
Lincoln.
Lincoln School, which
So
was
did I.
I did also. You walked, of course.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
That's another difference between the present time and those days.
That's right.
There were neighborhood schools.
Yeah.
Today, the majority of children are bused. I walked to school.
Mm-hmm.
I was close by. I lived on Central Street.
Mm-hmm.
Walked up the street. So Lincoln School on Cross Street. Did all your brothers and sisters attend that school also, or
Yes, we all went to.
Yeah,
all
we
went to
did.
the
We all went
the-
there,
the local
yeah.
school? We talk about the neighborhoods, and in some of the other interviews that I have done speaking with residents of neighborhoods, you pretty much in those days stayed in your neighborhood. Is
I
that
thought
true?
that was it.
That was it.
I thought there was no other part of the world at that time.
It was Lincoln Terrace,
Just Lincoln Terrace.
and that was it.
We weren't allowed to wander.
Out of your,
Stay in your own yard.
stay in your own
Stay
yard.
in our own yard, or play in the streets, which we did a lot.
In the street. Was Lincoln Terrace, do you remember whether it was paved in
Yes,
those
it
days?
was paved.
It was
And
paved.
when I was born, it was paved anyway.
It was paved.
Yeah, because we used to play hopscotch and London Bridge is falling down and, you know, all those games, you know. Yeah, when they had weddings on Lincoln Terrace, they put a table in the middle of the road and the bride and groom would throw pennies off the porch. And all us kids used to run and pick up pennies.
Pennies.
So that way we could spend it.
Talking about the wedding celebration, that's a kind of a charming
Yeah.
memory.
Yes, it's true. Because, you know, every kid, we all wanted pennies.
And a penny was a
'Cause you
lot
could
in
buy
those
penny
days.
candy in those
Yeah,
days.
real penny candy,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
what other celebrations do you remember? I grew up on Central Street, and I can remember every year during the summer, I think it was in August, I'd hear the Italian Colonial Band. The windows would be open, and I
August
can
16th.
the tune is etched in my
St. Rocco's.
mind.
St. Rocco's,
It was sounded great, but you'd hear the band marching
right.
down. And can you tell us something about? Can you tell the
It was a
audience?
3-day celebration.
3-day celebration.
Started on a Friday night. I think they used to, the men used to cook tripe, and that was their meal.
Tripe.
Well, tripe.
Cow's
And everybody
stomach.
wanted tripe, okay? And then of course, they had drinking downstairs and everything. And on Saturday was another family get-together, a dance upstairs.
And this was in the Saladini Hall?
In the Saladini Hall, they had a dance upstairs for the adults, and we kids used to stay downstairs because they had candy and food and whatever, hot dog, whatever it was. And then they played bocce. And then on Sunday, they marched from Lincoln Terrace down to Graham Street, up Lancaster Street, to St. Anne's Church for a mess. All the men and the women marched. And when the mass was over, they went by Marguerite Avenue.
They made the circle.
Made the circle. Pete Piccolomini lived there, and he had a table out front with little cordials for them to drink.
For the band and
for the band. And then they continued on up, and then they had the band, the bocce in the afternoon, and the concert later on. And then at night was fireworks.
And it was the Italian Colonial Band.
Yes, it was the Italian Colonial Band.
They had a great sound, and they still,
yes, they did. And they still do.
The band still do.
And they still do.
Yes.
Yes, Steve does a wonderful job
conducting. It has a very, very long tradition in Leominster.
Very
good. Beautiful music.
Yes.
That's wonderful. That is one of the memories in my mind.
We couldn't wait for that time to come. We couldn't wait. Because they came from all over New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio. They traveled.
Other relatives, yeah.
Relatives who
yes.
of people who lived in the Terrace.
Some people in Lincoln Terrace had relatives in New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, because some of them lived in Pennsylvania before they came, like my father did. He lived in Pennsylvania in the coal mines before he came to Leominster.
And your father came to Leominster from Pennsylvania for work?
Work. Right, work. But,
yes.
But that's when he put up the stores, and later on, when that went in 1929 during the Depression, then he went to DuPont's.
You mentioned during you grew up in that period, and you left in 1938. 39, but you remember the hurricane of 38.
Yes, I'll
and
never
we were
forget
talking a little bit about this before.
Yes.
And
like I said, it almost took me away.
Tell us about that, please, ladies.
Yes, see, I was crossing the street with my mother and father and my kid brother as young ones. The oldest ones probably stayed on the porch, like she just said, right?
Yeah, I was a good girl.
Yeah. But anyways, we stayed downstairs of the garage because they had a cellar. And that's where we stayed until it was over.
And you watched the trees?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, and everything.
It was nice to see.
It was exciting.
It was funny.
Yeah,
it was exciting. But
yeah, it was.
The next day was a beautiful, gorgeous day like it usually is after a storm like that.
Yeah.
And we all walked around and saw
terrible storm.
All the everything that came down, the trees and whatever.
An historic storm.
Right.
So she was which one of you you were telling me before, which one was the brave one?
Well, she said she stayed on the porch.
She stayed on the porch, so you were the adventurous one.
Because I was younger.
So
also very talkative.
That's good. That's great.
And she's the shy one.
But I talk too.
You're doing. Thank you, ladies. It's great. You mentioned when we had our little chit chat earlier. You said that, and we had said during this interview, that you pretty much stayed in your own neighborhood as children. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you did go out on family trips to visit relatives. And where would you go?
Well, on Sunday afternoon,
right,
to Grandma's house we went.
And where was
Clinton?
In Clinton.
Where the Clinton Dam is.
Yeah.
She lived
where
right
the Clinton
near
Dam.
the last house, and there were two gates, the main gate and then the Grove Street with another gate. My grandmother's house was down below the road.
Yeah.
And that would be a big deal.
That was a very big deal.
We had the river.
Yes.
The
National River.
The National
That's
River,
right.
and it would be a big event because...
It was a big event.
You know, a trip to Clinton.
Now,
how would you go there with transportation? You take the trolley, because there was a trolley line.
My father had a big Maxwell. That he had bought. He said he and Jack Benny were the only two in the country that had a Maxwell.
Right, on Jack, the old Jack Benny show.
They bought a brand new for $1,200.
Wow. That was a lot in those days.
And we all piled in.
And the whole family,
Yes.
everyone
The whole
would get in.
family piled
Would
in.
you make any preparation? Would you bring anything, cook anything to bring, or would
My
it be?
mother probably did. She always brought something
Right,
down,
because
yes.
the whole family
That's right,
contributed.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
yeah.
you would visit. Now, you had mentioned some other places where occasionally you would go. That was,
Lowell.
Clinton was a Sunday trip, but
Lowell, where my
Lowell.
mother had a sister there, and she had a brother in Boston area,
Yeah.
Somerville. And then she had relatives in Boston also, that we used. Well, I had to travel with them because I was the youngest.
You were
and
the-
they always took the youngest too, my brother Ernie and myself. Ernie's the baby.
Yeah.
So we always had to go with them because we were the youngest.
it sounded like very, very memorable and very
yes.
and
A lot of
good
good
times.
times.
A lot of good times.
Right.
Traveling around Leominster itself, when you got a little older and you could venture out a little
that's
bit
when
more,
sure.
how would you?
We were teenagers.
When you were teenagers,
Yes.
did you ever take were the trolleys running then?
I remember the bus. I don't
remember
remember
the bus?
trolley that much, but the bus.
Not
The
too
bus, and where would you go on the
I
bus?
used to go, when I got older, I used to go shopping in Worcester.
You'd take the bus to Worcester?
And on Sundays to the beach. They always had a bus to the beach.
going to the beach.
Going to Nantasket Beach. Yeah. So
And we
did
went to
that.
Whalen Park.
Whalen
Whalen
Park,
Park.
which
We would
was
walk
really booming
sometimes,
then.
yes.
We would walk
We've
Walk-
walked it.
walk
Yes,
from,
we have.
wait a minute
From
now.
the Terrace.
Wait a
From
minute,
the
Eva.
terrace.
From Lincoln Terrace,
I'll take that back. Where we went from, when we moved from Lincoln Terrace, that's when I was going to Whalen Park.
Whalen Park, and where did
Walking.
you, and where, from Lincoln Terrace,
To Walker Street.
Walker Street, but that's still a long haul. That's,
It is, but
it's a
we
long,
were young.
long walk.
We did it.
You'd walk all the way from one side of
Well, she
Leominster
started walk, she was older than I,
to
but
Whalem.
we did when the war ended. All us, my girlfriend and I walked all the way to Whalen and back.
And that's a long haul. That would be a long haul
Yeah,
today.
but we took the
But you
whole afternoon and early
Yeah,
evening. to
leisurely
do it.
pace, and you went to Whalem for all the
Yeah.
the fun, and then
lot of fun.
walked back home. That's a change from today.
It was nice. It was nice.
Yes, it was good exercise. It was
Yes.
good for you too.
I remember the only kid in school in the summer that went on vacation. So I went on vacation to my grandmother's and to my aunt in Lowell. So, but the other kids didn't have any grandmothers. We were very fortunate that we had at least a grandmother.
Grandmother.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's very important, really. And those are fond memories.
fun. Yes, I can tell. I can
Yeah.
tell.
Right.
What else did you kids at the time do for fun? Like what kind of games today?
Well, at night, go ahead, Eva. What instrument did you play?
Music. You made your own
Ukulele.
music.
Yeah, and
I
what do
strummed
we
the
do?
ukulele.
And what do we do when we're
We
in
sang.
bed? 4 girls.
We sing.
You'd sing.
We all harmonize.
Mother taught
Harmonized.
us the songs of her day.
Mm-hmm.
All of them. We knew. At times she'd be in the rocking chair. We would crowd around her, and I'd be strumming the ukulele, and we would be singing, and we would be harmonizing too. So she sang. She had a nice voice. So did all of us. 4 girls.
Yeah.
We did. And we spent a lot of time like that.
There was a lot
we
of
were,
singing.
how would you say, we loved music. There was always music in the house. Whether it was a radio, it was always a radio until later on.
Right.
But then we have a record player, Eva?
We did. We had a
Yeah.
record player.
Was it a Victrola?
With the dog, what do they call that?
Yeah,
The famous
the
dog.
Victrola,
Yeah.
RCA, I think.
Well, when
Yeah.
they were all
Radio.
in school, my mother would put a record on for me in the morning because I wasn't old enough to go to school yet, and I would dance around and sing while the music was playing.
That's what we
Yeah.
did. We kind of entertained ourselves a lot.
That's,
And
yes.
we brought it because my aunts were the same way.
Yeah.
They all sang. My aunt and Clinton used to play the piano by
Right.
ear. So
So-
there was a lot of singing.
Singing in a musical family, and was so true in those days. People made their own music.
Yeah.
Yes, it's good.
Where today we have the recorded music
Yeah.
and the CDs and so on, and everything is amplified, and so that sounds very,
We
very
did.
wonderful.
That's what we did. A lot of
We
Sounds
that.
still
great.
like music today. I
Yeah.
still have it on in the house.
Yeah.
The same thing.
Oh my, yeah, all day long.
All day long.
I do that.
Sing
too.
along.
Yeah.
I sing in the house, whatever.
Yeah, that sounds great. So you pretty much entertained your excuse me, You entertained yourselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
Carl, I'm sorry. We'll have to erase that part. my throat. So you entertained yourselves. You had to, right? Because
right.
you survived admirably. No malls. You didn't go to the mall. No organized leagues to participate in, which are wonderful things. And malls are fine things too. But you stayed in your neighborhood pretty much, and very family oriented. And you.
She made her debut. Tell them where.
I sang.
You sang.
Well, this was when I worked. At work, we used to have shows. We'd put on shows maybe once in a while. So I sang, I think it was, City Hall.
Now, where did you work?
I was
Eva?
working at the Commonwealth.
Commonwealth Plastics.
Right. And
my dad worked there for a number of years.
I sang, but anytime at home, my folks would, and the rest of the family would say, "You want to hear Eva sing?" But I wouldn't do it. I would go into the next room and shut the door and sing it. I sang My Reverie, and I'll never forget it.
And that's how I learned it.
And it was a tough one to, the tune itself was hard for me, but that's what I did. Yeah, and while the rest of the people in the show, like they were dancers and all that, I would be singing a song to them to dance by so that they could, you know what I mean? We didn't have a record player or a band, and I sang Small Fry, and they would be, I forget what they were dancing, it might be tapping, I don't know. So here I am, constantly, continuously, I sang Small Fry while they did their thing. Yeah. It was funny, but it was a lot of fun.
And that was where at City Hall.
At City Hall.
City Hall.
Right. Yeah.
Just coincidentally, my aunt, I was speaking with her recently, and she recalls a talent show at City Hall through the school or something. A lot of talent shows.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like those were very, very enjoyable times.
Yes, and then also. When you worked at DuPont put on a big Christmas party for all the kids.
Yes.
DuPont on Viscaloid Avenue.
Yeah, so I remember going to all those Christmas parties because my father worked at DuPont. And they gave out wonderful gifts. That was really good. And that was a big thing for us, naturally, in those days. One small little toy, we were happy.
Right.
Not today, though.
Pleased with little gifts.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we all, like I said, entertained. I took tap dancing lessons. I sang at the Plymouth Theater. They had a matinee for children on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
And I got up and I danced and I sang "The Love Bug Will Bite You If You Don't Watch Out."
So at the Plymouth Theater, movie theater, they actually had they would have talent shows too?
Yes.
That's very, very interesting.
At matinee, right.
At the matinee. And the other theaters in Leominster at the time were the Metropolitan.
Right, and the Rialto.
The Plymouth and the Rialto.
Yeah.
So you had three, and those were really movie palaces, weren't they? They were very
The
ornate.
Plymouth was a very ornate, all marble inside. It was a beautiful, beautiful
and that's a
theater.
big difference between then
Too
and
bad
now.
it was torn down.
Because the theaters today, the cinemas are pretty much cookie cutter things, and
boxes.
they're not boxes.
Boxes.
Yeah.
But those were really movie palaces.
They really were. Yeah, they were really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad they were destroyed.
Yes.
Because that was history.
Yes.
And they should have kept it.
Ladies, it sounds as though, and it's not only sounds as though, it's true that you did very, very well and survived a time when there wasn't a lot of affluence. You said, it was a post-Depression period and pre-World War in World War II. Today we live in sort of a throwaway society where we try to recycle, we should, but there's so much affluence in our country, and that's a wonderful thing in many ways.
Yeah.
But did you waste things in those days? Was there a lot of...
Waste? No.
You said, Olga, that
Yeah.
you were happy at the Christmas party getting a little toy. That was
a big thing.
that was a big,
Oh,
wonderful thing.
big thing,
You were
yes.
pleased with
Just that little
just
toy.
that little thing.
Yeah.
That's a big difference between now.
And we had
and
relatives.
then.
We had an aunt that
yeah.
my uncle was a businessman. He had his own printing company, and of course they were better off than we were. And
Yeah.
I remember she used to give us girls dolls at Christmas and the boys a toy. And I always remember a big, I think it must have been a 10-pound box of chocolates
And
for the family.
for the family.
Right.
And
Yeah. She always bought, something. And my grandmother used to help, and my other aunt. So the relatives pitched in. Yeah.
and helped.
There was a lot of they were a close family anyway.
Close
Very
knit
close family.
We
Yeah.
still have close-knit families
we do.
today, but
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
those days, it was more common, I think.
That's right.
I
Yeah.
think it was more common.
Because today
Society
everything's in the fast lane.
Yes, the pace of life in 2003
Yeah.
is very,
The
very
children go
fast.
to school, they go to college, they don't come home again.
Right. And in those days, very often, when the family, the kids
Mm-hmm.
would grow up, they might move next door or within the neighborhood, stay in the neighborhood.
But then
Yeah.
when Eva got married, tell them where we entertained, where we had our parties.
In the barn.
Yeah, well, tell them
Oh,
what
wait a
street.
minute.
Was this when you went to Walker Street?
No, when she was married.
You were
When
married.
I was married, we were on Walker Street when I got married. And we had our dinner at Pearl's Restaurant.
I remember where
Then we
Pearl's
had our
Restaurant was.
reception
Central
at the
Street.
Santa Maria Hall
Santa Maria Hall.
on Lancaster Street.
Yeah.
We made a full day, we made a long day out of it. That's what we
And,
did.
and in those days,
Yes.
I don't want to skip any, so I won't mention all of the different halls, but the Italian American Benevolent Societies, there were a number of the societies.
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
different parts of Italy
From different parts
They
of
had the
Italy.
Romano Hall for the Romans.
Right,
the Romano Road.
Saladini,
Saladini for
Corfinio,
the,
Colombo, and
Marchigiani.
I'm
Yes.
sure I'm forgetting some,
Yes.
not intentionally.
Right. And the Fuggiana Hall.
Yes.
The Fuggianas,
Yeah.
yes.
And I remember as a kid, many of them were still in operation, and they all had the bocce courts. And,
Yes, that's right.
That's
yeah.
my favorite. I'm a bocce player.
You are Eva.
Yes,
all right.
I am.
All right. Where do you play?
I'm a hitter,
Yeah.
or a pointer, or whatever you want to call it. The Sons of Italy ladies league. Of course, it's a large league now.
Yes.
It is, and I don't know how many teams there are there from all
24.
over Leominster and Fitchburg, and we play during the summer, all summer long.
And where are the courts?
On Lancaster
Lancaster
Street
Street,
at
Fudge,
it's
the old-
the Italian Center.
Right.
They have bocce
They still-
carts there.
Down there.
And we're using them. We are using them, and we play a game every year. Every week we play
And
all
you-
summer long.
And you've kept that tradition, which is
We're-
wonderful.
Yeah, we have, and then towards the end we have like it was like a tournament. Sometimes we had a tournament, and it's a lot of fun.
It's
I've been playing for I don't know how many years now. Me and the other girls,
excellent.
and yeah, I love it.
And we bowl.
And you
And
bowl
then
We
in
have a
winter,
bowling team.
all winter long, we bowl
For the Sons of
also.
Italy.
Yeah.
for the Sons of
Yeah,
Italy,
I
so
bowl.
you
Yeah, we still
keep
bowl.
active.
We've been doing that.
Yeah.
In the fall, we start again.
Now, so you have you still those traditions you
Yeah,
keep going and alive. That keep those traditions alive. That's wonderful. I'm going to go back,
Back to-
way back
Yes.
to the time you grew up, to the Monroe family on Lincoln Terrace.
Oh,
Neil
yes.
And this
Monroe.
was a topic
Yes,
which we
yes.
spoke about at the Historical Commission.
Yes.
And there was a very, very wonderful woman. There were a number of them. One was a Mrs. Monroe, who was a midwife. And for the audience, midwifery, there are a couple of pronunciations.
Right.
A midwife was a woman who assisted another woman during the process of
Right.
childbirth.
Right.
Now today, even though that's coming back somewhat,
Mm-hmm.
midwifery,
Yeah.
most children are born and you go to the hospital. The woman goes to the
Yeah.
hospital and the baby is
None of
born
us
there.
were born in a hospital.
So none of you,
Were born in a hospital.
none
At
of you.
home.
My mother had two midwives. One was Mrs. What they call her, Pindadella Perla. She lived on 26 Lincoln Terrace. The homestead is still there. That would be Viola Marchetti's mother. And the other one was Mrs. Fermani,
Mrs.
the one that owned
Yeah.
Fermani's market, the mother. She was another midwife
Right.
for my mother.
And so
Those are the two ladies that my mom had.
Yeah.
We're having, being 9 of us.
so you were
So
born
they-
at home.
Yes,
and,
right.
and was there also a Mrs. Monroe?
Not in my, Alice Monroe, I remember her, but I don't know if she was a midwife, I'm not sure.
I believe she was. I
Well, she
think she,
must have
I think
been,
she
yeah.
was. Yes, because
She
her
was.
name was brought up. So this idea of that's a big change
Yes, that is a
between
big
then and
change.
now.
Yeah.
You know, hospital births and being born at home.
Yeah.
And like this is what my mother did. She stayed, the women usually stayed in bed for a good many days.
40 days.
Recuperating. Honestly, and my mother did it to the day.
40 days.
Even, yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
it's what they believed in,
That's
I
what they
guess.
believed in those days.
You're getting
So-
a good rest.
So over a
and-
month.
So I tease
Wow.
Viola Marchetti because I tell everybody she was our nanny or housekeeper
Yes.
because her mother used to send her to help my mother do laundry while she was in bed at that time. Because they couldn't put their hands in cold water for some reason or other, I don't know.
Yeah, there was
Okay.
a thing,
So
you
she,
needed to,
so
you
there
needed
was-
to
There was a
have
lot of
good
help in
rest,
those
yeah.
days. When someone was sick, or sometimes they would walk down the street where they'd kill a chicken and bring it so they could make soup out of it.
Chicken soup. That
Right,
hasn't changed.
okay.
Nothing like it.
Nothing like chicken soup, yeah.
I guess
Even to
scientifically there
today.
is something
Yeah.
to chicken soup.
Yeah.
The collagens or whatever the
You know, my
substance
mother
might be.
would not go to a hospital. So all fine.
That's a big change between
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
big change now.
from between then and now, where when women, well, all hospital stays pretty much are in and out. That's it.
Yeah.
Because of insurance and HMOs and so
Yes,
on.
now today they go,
but-
that's no good.
But women
Right.
give birth to the child, and then they're in, if they're in 2
Evidently,
days, 3 days,
And
I'm
you know,
not even sure.
in those
Worked out
days,
fine.
we didn't even know they were pregnant. I mean, you know what I mean? Today everybody know. But the women sort of, well, they wore those little dresses, so it really didn't show that much.
The maternity.
Even my grandmother was fooled.
Yeah,
and my aunt.
the style of dress was such
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you couldn't tell.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Uh,
But it was a fun time, though. It really was.
It's
Yeah, a lot of
fun time
togetherness.
and an interesting
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Are there any other things which you'd like to, any other particular things that you remember before we conclude this interview that you'd like to tell us about in your reminiscences, any outstanding things?
We do that a lot. Where I don't know if I had mentioned it when we had the huge fire and when Patton's was down, we call it below from where we lived.
At the base of the
Where
terrace?
CBS is now.
No,
Where?
behind in back of our house on Lincoln Terrace, down below the, it was like a
Where the
river.
stream is,
Yeah,
right?
right. And it was like a pond there. And
Patton's
had
factory?
The factory. Then they moved to Lancaster Street from there. But I don't think, I've said it many times, but I don't know if she would, probably not. We used to play in there when it was emptied out.
When the factory was
Right, there were
emptied out.
a group of girls and men and fellas from the terrace. We got together and we used to play from the top floor to the bottom floor. Be
Of the
like, the narrow stairways going up to the very top.
And was it a
So-
huge building?
It was quite big.
A
It
good
was
building.
big, yeah.
Patton's factory.
About
you
the
know,
size of the DuPont building, the number 100 building.
which is
I
a
think.
large building.
Yeah. And,
And today you'd never know that there was a
No,
there was a
no,
factory.
no.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would.
That
no,
was
I don't
even
know what
on
cows do.
Marguerite Avenue at one time.
Yeah.
What I remember was a vacant, it must have been a factory at one time. I used to go down at night and sing because of the echo your voice sounded.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So I used to go down
that's
and
low-tech
practice.
amplification.
Right. So I used to go down by myself,
Yeah.
and I used to sing, and the echo in your voice really sounded good.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then one night, that building went
Patent
up.
building,
A horrible, and what a sight. What a sight.
and you could see it from.
We could see it.
the height
We
of the
didn't have to go
terrace.
out, leave the house
Just
at
look
all.
out the-
We were in our bedrooms.
Just
The
look
boys
out
were
the
in theirs,
window.
we were in ours. We just looked out the window. But the windows were getting hot from the heat.
Because the
Of the-
proximity there
Right,
is
yeah.
very, very
That
close.
was a sad thing to see it go.
Yes.
That stayed with us. We were afraid to go to bed at night for quite a while.
Is that where they had
Yeah.
the skating? People used to skate in the
On the
winter weather
pond? Yeah, I
And
think
there
they
was a
skated
pond,
down there.
pond
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
area
It's big
too.
enough
And,
for
My
that,
mother
yeah.
used to
and today you
skate.
never
My mother,
know.
my
Yeah.
mother had, when she got married, my grandmother gave her her skates.
Yeah.
And they all skated because in the winter in the Clinton Dam when it froze, the ice,
Right.
they used to have skating parties.
Yeah.
But that was before my time, but I can visualize it.
Yeah, I remember
So
that too.
my mother didn't have anything to do because in those days when they got married, the women didn't work.
Well, now don't let the women worked very hard, right?
In the home,
yeah.
in the home,
They
but
were.
not, they
Boy,
didn't work in the
worked.
factory, okay? So she decided to go ice skating one afternoon. So when my father went to work the next day, someone went up to him and said, your wife was seen ice skating yesterday afternoon. She shouldn't be doing that. So my father told my mother, were you ice skating yesterday? And she said, yes. Well, I don't think you should do that anymore because they didn't think it was proper.
It was not proper for
But
her
she-
to be.
yeah.
Well, that
She-
certainly has changed. I mean, that's
Yeah, but that's what they did in
Right.
Clinton.
They were brought up that way.
right there in
Clinton,
Clinton.
yeah.
They, in Clinton,
They all had their skating.
Yeah, they
skates,
would
right,
make a
because of-
bonfire in the winter. Yeah, everyone
because
skated.
of the Clinton Dam.
Yeah.
And the,
Right,
And then summer, that was our beach.
that's right.
not-
That
not
was the,
Clin-
how would you say, where the family gathered. Those days
when
we...
you went on your Sunday trips
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Yes,
to
because
Clinton.
my
you
grandmother
mentioned
had 18 grandchildren at the time.
Yeah,
18 grandchildren.
Yeah.
This is very, very interesting, especially the contrast between then and now.
Then and now.
And just before, ladies, we conclude this interview, which has been interesting, I just want to conclude with just jumping off from something
Yeah.
you just said. The work that the women did in those days, like the daily chores. Can you just fill the audience in or give the audience some
the
idea?
daily chores. I
The
remember,
daily chores.
I
What was
remember the bucket in the kitchen on the chair and the washboard.
Scrub board,
The scrub
washboard.
board. I remember my mother, and making bread. The big kettle with the dough in there and making bread.
that was the boys' job.
Yeah.
The boy's job was
Yeah.
to
Doing the bread.
make the bread.
Yeah, to knead it and all that.
Knead the dough
Right.
and
Yeah.
But I
They were
remember my
strong.
mother scrubbing. I can, with the scrubbing board.
no washing machine, right? That came
No
in later
washing
with
machine.
the
That came in
hand
later.
crank rollers and everything.
With
it was
the
a
ringer
scrub
type.
with the ringer type. It was you had a tub
By hand.
by hand,
When we moved to Walker Street, we had a ringer type wash machine.
and that was modern.
That was modern.
That was modern.
That's
And did
right.
you have to crank? You had to crank the ringer, right? Probably at the time because it wasn't like.
Yes,
Afterwards-
we
Yeah,
had to.
and then later on, the
yeah.
automatic ringer,
Right.
and then as the washing machines became
but
more
that
modern.
I remember is the laundry
And they
and-
were, of course,
and
dried.
and when you made the polenta, it was on a big board
Yeah, I
that
remember.
Carl's grandfather made. I guess he made it because he used to do a lot of that. But different for the Italians, a pasta board.
Yes, I
Yeah.
remember eating
Oh,
polenta
yeah.
over at my
Well, Carl's
grandmother's.
grandfather used to do a lot of that, and the bastona, so they called it.
The rolling
The
They
rolling
call
pin.
that bastona.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rolling pin, but
Right.
you were bringing memories back about the polenta with the sauce
So now
on it. and
you picture 11 people around the table
Yes.
on a board.
cornmeal mush is what
Well,
it was,
yeah.
right? But it was good. Yeah.
I'd kill for it
As a
today.
kid, I didn't particularly like that.
Oh,
I
I
think I was
always
kind of
did, yeah.
squeamish about. You had to
Right.
make out your own. We used to
Make
my
like a
grand-
map or something.
Yeah, and then you'd have your section.
Right.
But yes, I remember that at my grandparents. Getting back to the daily chores, the washing, scrubbing,
Everything
hand
by
wash,
hand.
and you'd pop everything in the dryer.
No.
I'm being facetious again.
No,
No
you didn't.
dryers. The dryer
They
was
had a big
solar
line
dryers, right?
outside.
It was a solar dryer.
You had a
It was
long
the sun.
Clothesline.
clotheslines
Right.
outside.
Clotheslines
And in
outside.
the summer, some of them in the kitchen used to have a rope
Yeah.
and,
yeah.
and hang the clothes in the kitchen.
In the kitchen for when it was
To dry them
rainy
up,
days.
right.
Yeah.
What about some of the other, the cooking? Everything was, no takeouts then,
No,
right?
no takeouts.
Everything was homemade.
Homemade, that's right.
We were all taught to do something. That's what it was.
All
Yeah.
of the children,
Yeah.
all of the
We all had
kids.
to
Beginning
job.
from, like, my sister, the one before me, and myself and all that. We all had something to do, and we were taught all of that. When it comes to, we were taught to cook, to clean, to sew. All my mother, yeah, she taught us all. And to babysit. Did I leave out anything? Cook, clean, sew,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you had plenty to do.
We
I never
were
had a
kept
chance
busy.
to cook.
We
There
were
were too
kept
many
busy.
before me.
You were kept busy.
Yeah.
And
My brother Bonnie used to do the laundry a lot.
so in all of those chores and responsibilities, did you no harm? It
No.
did you good. It was,
Well,
it
it
was
did
good for
good
you.
because we knew what
yes,
to do.
You knew what to do.
When we got married, we
Yeah.
knew what to
And you
do.
knew
We
what to
taught our
do.
own kids after.
And you taught your own
Oh,
children.
yes.
That's wonderful. Ladies, it sounds like you had a wonderful childhood, and
We thought so. We thought it was a lot of fun.
Well, it was like we didn't have much, but there was a lot of togetherness.
and,
Family.
And
Family
that-
was very important in those days.
and that's what really matters.
And we
That's what
still
really
do.
matters.
And we still do.
We're going to have a family
We
reunion.
have a reunion.
That's wonderful.
The
every
20th
year.
of July. My brother belongs to Oak Hill Country Club, and there's a lot of our friends from Lincoln Terrace and around the Clinton area, relatives that attend.
Yeah.
That's those family ties that were forged in the past
And
are
then
still strong today, and that's wonderful.
We have a one-man band, and we get up and we entertain.
We do.
We still entertain.
We do.
Ah.
We still do.
We have the Cipolla sisters. I don't know if you know them, Lizzie Marchetti.
Yeah, I've heard. Yes,
Okay,
if I
well,
saw them, I would.
All right,
I'm sure I'd
well,
recognize
they're
them.
in the group, and us four girls.
That you're going to harmonize.
So we all sing.
We do.
My brother sings, and then we have different ones get up and sing.
That's
doing that, yeah.
wonderful.
So we're still trying to, from Lincoln Terrace to Clinton to her house on Franklin Street. They had a barn attached to the house, and we used to have cookouts there.
Oh,
we had wedding showers there. We had Halloween
Eve
parties
party,
there,
Halloween party.
anniversaries there.
Thanksgiving dinners.
Thanksgiving dinner with the whole family. There'd be about 40 of us.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
sounds
And-
like a great.
Right. So now and then, of
great
course,
time.
she sold the house, and then now my brother continued at the Oak
Yeah,
Hill Country Club.
Tommy picked it up.
Yeah, my
Okay.
brother Tommy picked it up.
Well, ladies, Eva and Olga, we thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And we thank you.
For a window into the past and
Right.
sharing your recollections with us today at the LA TV studios. And as always, I want to thank Kyle Pimerini and Jack Sully for their expertise in the studios of the Leominster Access Television. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
all.